Best way to structure a tkinter application? The following is the overall structure of my typical Python tkinter program. Funa Fund and Func will bring up another top-level windows with widgets when user click on button 1, 2, 3. I am wondering if this is the right way to write a Python tkinter program. Sure, it will work even if I write this way, but is it the best way? It sounds stupid, but when I see the codes other people written, their code is not messed up with bunch of functions and mostly they have classes. Is there any specific structure that we should follow as good practice? How should I plan before start writing a Python program? I know there is no such thing as best practice in programming and I am not asking for it either. I just want some advice and explanations to keep me on the right direction as I am learning Python by myself.
I advocate an object-oriented approach. This is the template that I start out with. The important things to notice are: I don't use a wildcard import. I import the package as tk, which requires that I prefix all commands with tk. This prevents global namespace pollution, plus it makes the code completely obvious when you are using tkinter classes, ttk classes, or some of your own. The main application is a class. This gives you a private namespace for all of your callbacks and private functions, and just generally makes it easier to organize your code. In a procedural style, you have to code top-down, defining functions before using them, etc. With this method you don't, since you don't actually create the main window until the very last step. I prefer inheriting from tk frame just because I typically start by creating a frame, but it is by no means necessary. If your app has additional top-level windows, I recommend making each of those a separate class, inheriting from tk top-level. This gives you all of the same advantages mentioned above. The windows are atomic, they have their own namespace, and the code is well organized. Plus, it makes it easy to put each into its own module once the code starts to get large. Finally, you might want to consider using classes for every major portion of your interface. For example, if you're creating an app with a toolbar, a navigation pane, a status bar, and a main area, you could make each one of those classes. This makes your main code quite small and easy to understand. Since all of those instances share a common parent, the parent effectively becomes the controller part of a model view controller architecture. So, for example, the main window could play something on the status bar by calling self.parent.statusbar.setHello world. This allows you to define a simple interface between the components, helping to keep coupling to a minimum.
Putting each of your top-level windows into its own separate class gives you code reuse and better code organization. Any buttons and relevant methods that are present in the window should be defined inside this class. Here's an example, taken from here. Also see Simple Hello World from tkinter Docs, tkinter example code for multiple windows, why won't buttons load correctly? Tkinter, how to show, hide a window. Hope that helps.
This isn't a bad structure, it will work just fine. However, you do have to have functions and a function to do commands when someone clicks on a button or something. So what you could do is write classes for these, then have methods in the class that handle commands for the button clicks and such. Here's an example. Usually TK programs with multiple windows are multiple big classes, and in the underscore init underscore all the entries, labels etc. are created, and then each method is to handle button click events. There isn't really a right way to do it, whatever works for you and gets the job done as long as it's readable and you can easily explain it, because if you can't easily explain your program, there probably is a better way to do it. Take a look at Thinking in tkinter.
OOP should be the approach and frame should be a class variable instead of instance variable. Reference this URL.
If you want to see more, please consider subscribing.